Well, hello there, witches, pagans, and rabble-rousers of YouTube. My name is Shane, and I'm back today with a video about the fact that magic works, and we don't get to decide how. I've added some witchy ambiance today. I've got my spooky candles and such, and not for the reasons that you think. It's not just because I'm trying to create the witchy vibe and the aesthetics that people on the internet seem to love so much. But I hear that candlelight is, flattering, and I'm not having a great skin day. I'm having a decent hair day, which is why I was like, even though it was a long day of work and school, maybe I'll make a video tonight. But my skin is like all broken out, and I'm really, really glad because this will probably be like the thumbnail that YouTube chooses to use for the cover of this video. Because for my last few videos, they have chosen whatever algorithm selects, the still. They have been spectacular. I mean, they have just been gorgeous. Yeah, you see what I mean? So, just warning you and myself that that's probably going to be the cover of this video. It's going to be me like this looking at my zit. But I digress. I have been doing a lot of thinking lately about magical efficacy, and had some really interesting conversations with people as of late, people in my tradition and people I'm very close to, and have just been really surprised at how many of my friends and nearest and dearest have expressed doubts as to whether or not magic works, or if it works for them, or just a number of things. Just kind of, and anytime I have the same or a similar conversation with more than one or two people in a very short period of time, that tends to be something that I pay attention to. That always feels significant to me somehow. So, I was talking to a couple of friends about doubt, and one of my best friends had said something fantastic like, doubt is the boner killer of magic, which I love. I want that embroidered. I want that cross-stitched on something, like on a sampler, and framed. Doubt is the boner killer of magic. And I could make a whole video about doubt and magical silence and just letting the work cook and all of that. And maybe I will, but that's probably not what I'm going to talk about today. I had spoken to another friend sometime last week about, sometimes our magical success doesn't look like what we anticipate it looking like. And I gave him the following example. So several months ago, I was really short on cash. I mean, a bitch was broke. And I was like, because, I forget I'm a witch sometimes, right? Like you do. And it occurred to me to do some prosperity magic, which I fired off very quickly and not terribly specifically. So, we all know specificity is pretty important in magic. So the days start going by, and again, I'm short on funds, and I didn't realize this till later, but one of my regular customers had come by my shop and brought a pizza for my crew, so I had pizza for dinner that night. A few days later, another one of our regular customers, who's a great guy, came by and brought us a whole bag of empanadas, so I had another meal. Another friend dropped by. I had done her a favor, and she swung by with some burritos for me. And I was like, oh, awesome. I went out to dinner to a diner with another friend who was like, you know what? I haven't seen you in a while. I'm going to pick up the check. I went to the sandwich shop a few doors down from my store where I'm a good customer. They see me all the time. And this lady just gave me a free sandwich just because. And after about 8 or 9 days of this, it hadn't occurred to me, and I was still bemoaning my lack of, actual money, and I was like, I can't believe my magic didn't work, and, if it weren't for the fact that I haven't paid for a single one of my meals in the last 8 days, I'd have no money at all. I haven't paid for any of my meals in the last 8 or so days. And that's when it kind of had hit me that my prosperity magic had worked, just not in the way that I had wanted it to, right? Like, I wanted a fistful of cash, and that was not what was in store for me for a variety of reasons. In a roundabout way, because I had had all of those meals and all that food provided for me and all of my food paid for over a week, I did end up with some extra unanticipated cash money in hand, and I was able to take care of whatever I had needed to take care of that week. So did my spell work? Well, I'm having this debate with a friend last week, and he said no. And I said yes. And I had just encouraged him, to really think about broadening his definition of work. So we were having a conversation, and just about, medicine doesn't work all the time either, but that doesn't stop us from going to the doctor. It doesn't stop us from taking, Advil or Tylenol or what have you when we have a headache. Medicine isn't 100% effective all of the time, but we keep using that. So why would we give up on magic? Why would we give up on the craft, after a couple of situations where our magic had failed or our magic hadn't worked quite in the way that we had expected it to? So which is why I say magic works and we don't get to decide how. Because I absolutely think my magic was successful in that example. So in having this fight with this friend, sorry, not a fight, a spirited discussion, I asked him to describe, I said, so I gave him the medicine example, which is not mine, by the way. I unabashedly stole that from my friend Deborah. And, I asked him, well, do you need 100% efficacy? Do you need it to look and feel and taste and smell exactly the way you visualized it for you to say that it had worked? What is your criteria for your magic working? And, this jerk just, he was like, he couldn't really put it into words. He couldn't articulate it. He says, I know it when I see it. And, we had a good laugh, right? Because that's a colloquialism from, Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart in 1964. He was asked to define pornography or define obscenity, and he couldn't. All he could say is, I know it when I see it, and that the example in question was not it. But that kind of, became like a running joke. I know it when I see it. And I said, no, you can't apply that in this situation. You can't decide, retroactively, with your magic. And I don't know, kind of, because that Supreme Court justice had been since kind of critiqued for the individualistic arbitrariness of that. You can't write legislation based on, I know it when I see it. You can't teach others magic, or you can't, share your experiences based on the criteria of I know it when I see it. So again, my suggestion to him and to all of you, is to think more broadly about what magical efficacy looks like and what a successful magical working looks like. Because it's not always going to be a sack of gold bullion falling out of the sky and into your lap. It's just not. I wish it was. My life would be a hell of a lot easier. Yeah. I don't know, but the other reason that he and I had gotten into this discussion was because another friend, my roommate and I were kind of teasing him and ragging on him a little bit, and we said, you love your books and your studying and your reading, you love to learn all these things, but do you ever put them into practical application? Like, do you do this stuff, or do you just like to sit around and read about it and theorize and daydream? Because at some point that becomes intellectual masturbation, right? At some point that just becomes, you're an armchair occultist, and, we all know that's a thing, right? But don't do that. So, we were just giving him hell, and we're like, do you ever plan on doing anything with all this knowledge that you've amassed, or are you just going to keep reading and not changing anything about your life? And he had talked about, the fear of failure and how if his magic failed, if your magic fails enough times, do you have to square yourself with the fact that it's all bullshit? Do you have to take a good hard look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is all nonsense. It's all bullshit. I've devoted my life to it. I've devoted hours of study and ritual, and it turns out it's all a bunch of bunk. I don't think so. But again, that could be the reasons why I don't believe that to be the truth. Could be a whole video in and of itself. But the reason I don't think so is because, so my therapist is convinced that we're afraid of success, not failure, right? That it's actually the failure of success that most people suffer from. And I kind of see where he's coming from, but I don't know if I buy that 100%. But a few things have kind of brought me around to that line of thinking, and it's when I look at my friend, and when I think about the impact that magic and witchcraft and the craft, especially Gardnerian craft, in my tradition and being in my coven has had on my life. And it forces you to face your shit in a lot of ways. And that's not easy. It forces you to transform your life. And that is not comfortable. And so for that reason, I understand why the fear of success might even be greater than the fear of failure in this instance. Because when we're successful, all of a sudden we have a lot more to answer to, right? When we're successful, whether it's in our jobs, our careers, our covens, our magic, whatever, all of a sudden, new responsibilities come along with that. So yeah, I don't know. And then that just made me think of, before she went off the goddamn deep end and decided to run for president several months ago. Do we all remember that? I know at one point there were 893 Democratic candidates for president, but Marianne Williamson, this kind of kooky new age author or what have you, before she decided to throw her hat in that bizarre ring and, she had written a book in 1992 called A Return to Love, and it was reflections on the principles of A Course in Miracles. And there's a fantastic quote from that book that I love and that I really subscribe to. And it's often misattributed, is that a word? Yeah. To Nelson Mandela for some reason. I think it might have been used in his inaugural speech. But it is Marianne Williamson. And I'm going to I don't have it entirely memorized, but it's, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. And as we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I love that. I've always loved that. So when the experts talk about, fear of success actually trumping fear of failure, I think about that. And I don't wonder if that isn't true. So yeah. Magical efficacy. Magic works, and we don't get to decide how. That's where I was going with all of this once upon a time, 13 or 14 minutes ago. But yeah, and the other thing that I like to tell my students and my new initiates and, people that I've trained or that I've given talks to or whatever is, you have to realize that magic works along the path of least resistance, right? Like I said, there was not going to be a sack of gold coins falling out of the sky. This isn't a fairy tale. It's not Jack and the Beanstalk. It's not whatever. That's just not going to happen. Okay. And in my case, like I said, I fired off some real quick prosperity magic, not terribly specific. So number one, right? Not terribly specific. But number two, and maybe more importantly from a practical perspective, there was no other channel in my life for that prosperity to trickle down and find me. I don't have any wealthy relatives. Definitely not. Do not have any rich people in my family that could have left me an inheritance, right? I don't have any stocks or bonds or anything else that are vested and ready to, pay dividends or whatever that terminology is. It's not my birthday, right? So nobody could all of a sudden feel compelled to send me a $50 check for my birthday. No one is going to suddenly remember that they borrowed money from me and need to pay it back because I don't loan people money. I wasn't going to get a raise at work because our raises only happen once a year at the beginning of October, right? The start of our fiscal year. That's the only time. I wasn't going to win the lottery or the Powerball or whatever because I don't play the lottery. And there's a joke from a long time ago that my parents used to tell me, and it was like, a woman had prayed, because of course it's a woman, because misogyny is hilarious. A woman was praying to God, God, please let me win the lottery. And she was so fervent in her prayer, right? She prayed morning, noon, and night. God, please, just please let me win the lottery. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this woman prayed, Lord, please, I'm begging you, I'll do it, but just please let me win the lottery, Lord. Please, please, I'm your servant. Please let me win the lottery. After days and weeks and months of this, finally, she's praying one day, the woman, and there's a booming voice, the clouds part, and there's a flash of lightning, and the voice of God says, my child, meet me halfway, buy a ticket. My parents told me that many years ago, and, like I said, I've always kind of kept that in the back of my mind where magical efficacy is concerned, because, right, to my earlier point, I can't win the lottery if I don't buy a ticket. I can't win, a slot machine if I don't go to Vegas or to Atlantic City. And so whatever. So there was no other path for prosperity to find me for those 8 or 9 days that I was really strapped, because it didn't exist. So my magic worked because prosperity managed to find me. It, carved out the only tunnel that it could to come and meet me. So yeah, that's my quick, those are my thoughts on magical efficacy and the fact that magic does work and we don't get to decide how. And that's really difficult for a control freak like me. I'm a Virgo. I'm very true to type, but also, just who I am in my various roles that I play to other people. And I like to be in control. I like to be in charge. And it's been a real learning for me that I can't be in control and I can't be in charge all the time, especially of my magic. And it's been fun. It's been good for me. And I hope it's a similar journey for you. I hate the word journey, but it's all good. And yeah, if you have thoughts, I'd love to hear your comments below. And if you have ideas about anything else you'd like to see on this channel, I love to talk magical theory all the live long day. I love to talk about most things. And let me know if there's anything in particular you want to hear. And I don't know, what do internet people say? Hit subscribe, hit share, hit like, just hit a bunch of things. Just play whack-a-mole with them buttons, okay, babies? Be well. Wash your hands. Coronavirus is still a thing. And just take care of yourselves and each other. I'm oddly emotional tonight. I love you.